So, an original statement on the Israel-Hamas war issued by the EMSB's Joe Ortona was critical and was criticized for being too one-sided, which led the EMSB to issue a second statement. We spoke to Joe Ortona earlier today and began by asking what led to the decision to clarify their position.
Yes, some people were very critical of the statement, but the second statement that came out was not necessarily because of the criticism that we received. We still maintain that the tragedy that occurred in the terrorist attack by Hamas is horrific, and of course our heart goes out to the innocent victims and civilians that died as a result of that. It's not necessarily that we changed our original statement. It's that the circumstances of what's going on in the region changed in the days and in the week that followed, and based on that, we felt that another statement was appropriate. Our heart goes out to all, innocent civilians that are killed, regardless of who is doing the killing, and we need to show compassion for those people. And, we maintain that on one side and on the other.
It seemed, though, that parents found the initial statement to be one-sided and insensitive, and there have been many demands for that initial post to be deleted. Why not just delete it?
Well, to be honest, I don't see why that should be deleted. And I guess I'm just going to have to respectfully disagree with the people who are calling for that. The comment, and this is where I think it gets misinterpreted. Some people are interpreting that comment as, choosing sides in a conflict, and it wasn't. It was showing compassion for a horrific attack, and it was showing compassion for the victims of that attack. And I draw a parallel with what happened with 9/11. And on 9/11, we didn't have social media at the time, but I think everybody remembers where they were when that happened, and the news that came, and people around the world were expressing condolences for the family members of the dead victims. And that moment, that specific moment, is not the moment to talk to retort with well, what about the American military-industrial complex, and what about all the bombs that they dropped, and what about all the other the people that they've killed. It's just showing compassion for dead people is not in any way condoning other dead people. There's always a time and a moment when it's appropriate to express sorrow for tragedies that occur in the world, and expressing it for one does not mean that we don't acknowledge the other. Other tragedies are acknowledged in different ways and in different moments, and sometimes you can't just put them all together in one statement. Different statements address different people, and it's not exclusionary.
Joe, for what it's worth, I agree with you. I think people lose a bit of context here. What happened on that Saturday in Israel, the horrendous slaughter that happened, your reaction was to that. What's happening in Gaza now, the innocent lives there being lost, that didn't happen on the same day. They're not simultaneous events. So for you to have issued a second statement acknowledging that and what's happening right now in Gaza, I think you actually did the right thing.
Well, I appreciate that, and most people agree that we did the right thing. And I also want to remember that I want to remind people out there that a lot of the people that are criticizing the EMSB for the first statement are, in their criticism, choosing sides. I mean, they're expressing, a condemnation of the policies of Israel, and the purpose of our statement was not to get into that at all. We know that obviously there's a conflict there that's older than my mother, and we're not going to, I don't know why anybody would expect the EMSB to resolve that issue or to have a foreign policy position. We know that it's a very complicated. There's been violence on both sides historically, but at the end of the day, I stand by the statement that I made in my first statement, that I repeated in the second statement. Targeting civilians is a war crime. It's never justified, and I think that most people agree with that. And unfortunately, some people were critical of that, but I have to stand by that, because it's that's just a principle. The United Nations recognizes that, and I stand by it.
Can I ask, Joe, how it's being handled in schools with the kids? Not about the statement, but the ongoing crisis in Israel-Hamas. How is that being handled in schools? What kind of support, what kind of resources are being offered? Because I know the EMSB is very strong in this area.
Yeah, we know that families, many people have families in that region, in Israel, in Palestine, and our heart goes out to them as well, because they're facing a lot of anxiety, uncertainty, fear. We offer mental health resources to any students and staff members who need it, and obviously, teachers, our teachers who are fantastic. If this topic of discussion comes up, and it could very easily come up, take the approach and make sure that whatever discussions are happening in the classroom is age appropriate, and you don't you don't tackle this topic to a Sec 5 student the same way you would to a grade 2 student. And I rely on them and the great work that they do in making sure that the discussions are always respectful, neutral, and open to listening to what everybody has to say.
Joe, just as a final question, and I know we've had protests, of course, Palestinian protests. There's another one planned for this weekend. Has the EMSB had any security issues at all where you had to actually have people there just in case?
No, we haven't had any incidents like that. Of course, we've, made sure to monitor the situation just in case, because we know that this is very, it's very emotional for everybody, and people are very passionate about this, and that's okay, as long as it doesn't get to the point where, we start getting into inflammatory language or Islamophobic language or anti-Semitic language, or hate. But thankfully, we haven't had any incidents in our school, and I think that that's important, and I think that is, really an acknowledgement, and I think it's a testament to the fact that we are open and tolerant, and we acknowledge that we're diverse, and we celebrate that diversity in our schools.
Well said. Joe, I thank you so much.
Thank you, Joe.
Appreciate the time today.
Thank you so much.